everybody loves the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. It's also bullcrap. Nobody cares, right? Which we'll get to later. We'll get to at the very end. So I don't want to ruin the fun for anybody who's waiting through all time. But they love that stuff, right? They eat it alive, and it's bullshit, if I can say that. It's the other thing is, like Gary Vee and the crushing like 100 different things every day. Again, nonsense. It's if I had a team of 500 people, I could do 100 pieces of content every day, and I could be everywhere. It's all nonsense.
Why do so many arts organizations struggle to capture and keep their audience's attention? Is it the marketing, the message, or is it something deeper? Hey there, it's Angela. Today on the podcast, I'm sitting down with marketing expert Dave Wakeman, whose work with global brands like Nike and American Express has transformed how businesses create value and growth. We will challenge the way you think about marketing in the arts. Dave takes us through the pitfalls and short-term tactics like discounting. He explains why focusing on long-term branding, understanding customers and non-customers, and launching products with strategy are essential for sustainable success. If you're ready to rethink your marketing and capture your audience's attention, this episode's for you. This is Arts Redefined. Hey, Dave.
What's happening? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, this is great. This is a nice change of pace for me to be on the other side of one of these things. So this is great.
Good. Well, I hope I make it as fun as you made it for me when I was on your podcast the other week.
I will do my best to entertain.
I want to jump right in because you've got so much content that I know everyone would be interested in hearing. So I'm going to jump in. Recently, I saw in your newsletter, your top 10 list, like David Letterman.
Yeah.
When you were talking to a branding class. So I want to take this through the lens of the arts and an arts leader.
Perfect.
And how can we apply these strategies to the creative sector? So number 10, you have strategy has become a useless word.
Sure. And that's a great place to start because I wanted to make one overarching statement before we even got into the conversation too much, which is if I can convince your audience of one thing today, one thing only, it would be this. It's that to throw out almost all you think you know about marketing and refresh your thinking because marketing hasn't necessarily changed, but I feel that most of the way people approach marketing needs to change because it is just, if I can be so bold on your podcast, it's ass backwards. And so to number 10, which is strategies become a useless term, it is truly a useless term. As the example I used in my class, which the video's online as well, so everybody can see the actual lecture I gave. Everybody has a strategy for everything. There's a Gen X strategy. You probably have a funder strategy if you're in the arts. You might have a single ticket strategy. You may have a group sales strategy, a donor all kinds of strategies, a Facebook strategy, social media. It's all used as a way to leech. Let's not even say, I'm going to be less polite. I'm going to say it's used to leak the power of the word strategy away from strategy. Strategy is a holistic tool that every organization should be using to help them identify what the success look like for their organization. Who are they trying to reach? And what value are they creating for their audiences and their communities? It is important, I think, for people to have a working definition of strategy because that's one of the reasons that strategies become useless is there's no really good definitions often, right? Because a lot of times the people who are throwing around the term, this strategy, that strategy, they're not using it well and they're using a definition that works for them. To me, strategy is a set of interconnected choices that are going to help you achieve a goal. Professor Roger Martin, who was the dean of the Rotman School of Management, he talks about the strategic choice cascade. Everything you need to know about strategy is you need to understand It's built on a foundation of having a vision, having a mission, having a direction, and making choices that will lead you towards that direction. So strategy has become a useless term because in too many places, people are forgetting the first part of this, is that the decisions need to be related to that mission, to that vision, to the goal, right? Because you may have as an example, a Facebook or a Twitter or a LinkedIn strategy for your single ticket sales or your subscription sales. It may be opposed to what you're trying to do as an organization because you may be trying to bring in new audiences. You may be trying to expand your audience. These things can contradict. It's okay to do it as long as you understand why you're doing it. And most of the time, people don't understand why they're doing it. Everything has to be focused on that end goal. Everything has to be coordinated and consistent over and over and over.
Perfect. Okay, 9. I love this. You'll fight with your sales team a lot. So sales.
I feel like this top 10 list was provocative in all, at least to me, all the right ways. So
Yeah.
so you'll definitely
Yes,
fight with your sales team. And one of the things I've learned about sales teams, it doesn't matter. This was for a brand class, but it doesn't matter. Arts, sports, business to business, whatever it is. You're going to fight with your sales team, especially if you're doing the job of marketing correctly. And the real reason is that we've kind of put the cart before the horse, I think is the term that I used, meaning that we put sales before marketing. And really, the salespeople are going to throw eggs at me. I guess you'd find out where I live and work, because sales is subservient to marketing. The job of marketing is a strategic job. And it's, again, should line up with the stuff we talked about before, which is like, what's our mission? Who are we trying to reach? What kind of value we are? I think of sales, and I've done a lot of sales jobs over the years, so it's like nothing against sales. It's a job of harvesting. So if the marketing team has not done their job very well, then the sales process can become littered with like short-term ideas, things that are destructive to your brand, things that don't necessarily put your organization in the best light. Because of the culture of short-term, thoughts and decision-making, the sales team has started to lead the cart of marketing. And it's wrong because, again, sales is driven by that bottom line number. And so a lot of times what happens is any sale is a good sale. So that'll lead to things like discounting or poor targeting or just like any kind of promotion, right? Those things can be destructive to your brand. They can be destructive to the profitability of your organization. They can start telling a story about an organization that you don't want to be. So you have to be careful. It's nothing against the sales team. It's just you have to put them in the right order, right? So if the marketing team has done their job very well, there should be a specific target. There should be a specific position. And all of the sales decisions should support that decision, not be made so, that the sales team is saying, we need more promotion. Our price is too high because that's what people are telling us about. We don't have enough collateral in the market, right? Which are all the familiar sales complaints that you get. So you're going to be fighting. You're going to fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. But when I think of probably the average arts organization, I think sales and marketing are one and the same, right? I mean, you're marketing because they're not big enough. Unless you're a huge like Broadway or whatever, you're just not big enough to have those two departments. So perhaps how do you, instead of thinking selling subscriptions or wanting to sell tickets, right? Shouldn't you be thinking in the mindset of I'm marketing this? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So are we using this video or are we not going to use the video here today? It doesn't matter. I was going to say, I don't have to draw the picture I was going to draw everybody. I was going to draw a picture.
Draw a picture.
So
draw a picture.
Long and short. And I am, this is like a little bit of the process. So, Can you see that? Right. So it says
I
long
can.
and long and short. They're feeding into each other.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. It's both. The important thing is sales and marketing and sales. And so what you need to do, you need to strike a balance. Any organization, this is true for, between long-term stuff, brand building, which is the basic work that a lot of us, if we're doing the job of marketing, well, consider marketing, right? Which is segmentation, targeting, positioning, right? Setting up a strategy, and sales activation. Now, the dirty secret is that there's really great research done in the UK from the IPA, which is their Association for Advertising. And it's done by two guys. They call them the godfathers or the grandfathers, I think the godfathers of effectiveness, Les Binet and Peter Field. And they created the study called The Long and Short of It. And they studied this stuff for years. And it just showed that like you need to invest both in long-term brand building and short-term sales activation. The mix, for rule of thumb, which I think has a bad connotation, which somebody told me about this week, but I looked it up. It's a little bit confusing, so we'll still use rule of thumb here today. 60-40, and that means 60% to your brand, 40% to your sales activation. What happens though in most organizations is going to be 10% or less of the investment in the brand. And what that does is that leads to, in the first year, maybe if you've been investing in your brand, you've been doing a good job, your sales will spike a little bit because you're putting a little extra effort into the sales activation, and it's driving sales that are happening because of the boost that your brand building has given. About 12 to 18 months in, though, you start to see it's like a little bit like a sugar high, right? Like the first Coca-Cola, oh my God, I'm bouncing off a wall. Then you do a second one and it becomes less effective, right? The third one, you're like, oh, and then the fourth one, your stomach hurts and you're like in the bathroom, like, why did I ever do this to myself? It's the same way with sales activation, right? At the start, it works really, really great. You look like a genius. But every time without the support of the brand, it becomes a little less effective. So the bounce becomes a little bit higher, or being a little lower, I'm sorry. And what happens then is people turn around and they do things like discounting. And the discounts, like again, it's a sugar rush. Shoots you right up in the air. And then it becomes less and less effective every time. At the same time you're doing this, you're chipping away at your brand equity. You're chipping away at the value proposition you made. You're chipping away at all of these positive brand associations. And so it becomes less and less effective as we go forward. So for an arts organization, it's not, should we be thinking about it as marketing? We should be thinking about the combination of marketing and sales and how they work together.
Yeah, and I love how that segues into number 8, which is marketing will get shoved into the corner, which it happens all the time. No one wants to spend money on marketing. No one has marketing in a line item in their nonprofit arts budget.
They should. Now,
well, and if they do, my guess is it's like Facebook ads and Instagram ads, but it's not a thoughtful, strategic, going back to 10 and 9 or 10, which is what's your mission, what's your why, and then you market to that. So why do we shove marketing in the corner, Dave?
Okay, I got 3 reasons for you. And these all things, the premise of this top 10 list was these are all things I've learned, like actually doing the job. They're not theory, because I was teaching a class and I was like, here's what really happens. So there's three things. So number 1 is there's either bad training or no training about what marketing really does. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a lot of bad voices get in the leadership's head and into the board's head and all the people who are making these decisions. I'll give you I'll give you a couple good examples because they're fun and I don't mind making fun of things. And, the more controversy I create, the greater it is for your podcast. So it's good.
Go for it.
I know the job.
Go for it.
Everybody loves the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. It's also bull crap. Nobody cares, right? Which we'll get to later. We'll get to at the very end. So I don't want to ruin the fun for anybody who's waiting through all time. But they love that stuff, right? They eat it alive, and it's bullshit, if I can say that. It's, the other thing is, like Gary Vee and the crushing like 100 different things every day. Again, nonsense. It's, if I had a team of 500 people, I could do 100 pieces of content every day, and I could like be everywhere. It's all nonsense, right? And then the third thing is that like marketers have done a bad job of advocating for themselves and defending their role in the organization. They kind of have an inferiority complex. So those three things combine to create an environment where marketing gets shoved in the corner. And marketing usually gets called really two things that I always fought against, and this is probably why Tom Elmer, who had me in his class, called me probably one of the greatest American marketers, which I thought was great. So I'm not just some other, like a clown. I'm like one of America's great marketers for everybody listening. And it was this. It was the marketing was the coloring in department, which means that like, oh, we just want to make things pretty, or we want to get things out into the world. Like, we'll find a promotion. And the other one, which I can't dispute, is they're fun at happy hour. And those were the two things that everybody would say. And I was like, well, the first one was definitely not me, but the second one I have to plead guilty to.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here we're clipping along. I love that. So number 7, data gets all the attention.
Yes. My goodness. Okay. So data, this is really good because I know everybody's ticket system. Everybody's like everything, everybody has access to. One of the key promises they make for you is like, you're going to have access to data. You're going to have all the data. You're going to have more data than you ever know what to do with. It's all going to be like puppies and rainbow data, even. Data's the greatest thing ever. And my point of view on this is that data is reactive. And what I mean is that the data is awesome. The data also is it's 100% accurate snapshot of what happened in the past. It has no relation to what will happen in the future. By blindly following your data, what you're doing is you're saying, my bet is that the future is going to 100% look exactly like the past. And this is a bad bet, at least in my experience, because I mean, things change all the time around, at least with me. And so what I advocate for, what I teach people to do is think of data as an input, or data is reactive, and research is proactive, and think of them as like kind of, they build off each other. You use the research or you use the data to understand and gain insights that you can use to test in your research. And it's a cycle that if you use it well, will feed off of each other. It will build off of each other. It will lead you to ask better questions. And research is this really daunting thing to people. Number one, because people in the arts probably don't have huge budgets for it. Number two, a lot of times when you say research, people have never had the opportunity to do really effective research, because most of the time they're like going, can you throw a survey monkey out there, or, put it in a Google Doc and like send it out to our ticket buyers or our subscribers. Real research has really 3 steps, and it's not hard to do. It can be, you can make it as complex as you want to. I mean, I've done it. But for arts organizations who probably have their budget stretched, you want to have a hypothesis. And by hypothesis, I mean it in the same way that you would if you were in a science class. It's, what question are you trying to answer? After you figured out that question, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, like, how is that going to show up? And like, how are those questions going to be answered? Is it somewhere you have a ranked choice? Is it like a long-term answer? Is it like multiple choice? Is it many options? Whatever it would be, right? Like, is there only one right answer and everything else is going to tell you you're wrong? Figure out what that is. And then number 3, you design your survey built around the first 2 questions. What I try to get people to do is understand the difference between primary data and secondary data. Primary research and secondary research. Primary research is stuff you do yourself. And then the secondary stuff is on Google, right? I use DuckDuckGo now. But if you use Google or Bing, it all works the same. I just find that the search results now have been a little bit better from DuckDuckGo, but just type the question you're looking for into the internet, and you'll be surprised what you can find. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's one thing that I focus on because, we're launching this pilot program this fall where we're actually going to be applying a logic model specifically for the arts in a software database that will allow organizations to collect data in real time and use that for two things. Use it to inform, are they serving their missions? Are they getting the outcomes that they want to get? And then secondly, being able to communicate what those results are. I think the arts problem has been that the data typically is collected in a time warp, right? And then by the time we analyze it and get it, it's like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later. And so you're exactly right. It's like, okay, great. In 2019, we were X, but I'm sitting here in 2022.
Yeah. And it's not just the arts. So I don't like when people from the arts hear this thing, I don't want them to think like, oh, well, you're permanently, resigned to like being behind. You're not, because I've been in huge organizations where they're still operating off the same segmentation targeting models that are maybe almost a decade old, right? In 2020, like in 2022, 2023. Like 2000, we did this in like 2015, 2016. I'm like, what? I might be stupid. I might be a lot of things, but I'm not dumb enough to tell you that the world has not changed in, those 7 or 8 years that like you probably can operate off the same, because it's just not right. And so I think what I try to encourage people to do, and this is really helpful for people who are in the arts, is not to try to have this big comprehensive piece of research. It's to kind of always be in the market and always talking to the people, always understanding, is this on the mark? Is this off the mark? Does this work or does this not for people? Because if you do take, like you said, this huge set of data, this comprehensive survey, it's hard. It is. It's expensive. It's hard. If you screw up the way the questions are formulated, you're going to get bad data, and then they'll be hard to replicate or repair that. So it's better just like, I do it regularly in the Talking Tickets newsletter. I just put out like 1 or 2 questions. I say, answer it for me in the Slack channel. So then I figure probably this is helpful. If I start to see 3 or 4 different people telling me the same thing, I start to say, maybe I'm on to something. So then I can go and I can investigate it a little further. And then if I need to start building bigger models to make sure that like what I have is a representative sample of the audience, then yes, I do that. But a lot of times just talking to like small groups of people or having little focus groups can give you more actionable, valuable data that you can use right away. And you can get that stuff done for cost of a couple pizzas or some free drinks at the bar, right? Like before a show. That's, it doesn't have to be much more complicated than.
Yep. All right. So we got to move on to non-customers. Come on, man.
Non-customers. Yes. So Peter Drucker said famously that you always need to look at your non-customers because they're the largest percentage of your audience. And I found that that's true just everywhere because, this one slide, which is number 6, right? Is that right? Or number 7?
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 6. Good. See, I even remember my presentation. It was great. Number 6 was the one that spurred so many people to send me emails or send me messages. And what it means when I say non-customers is like you want to focus on the market as a whole, your entire audience. Because what I see happen all too regularly and to the detriment of organizations, arts organizations specifically here, is you try to squeeze every last nickel and dime, every last engagement and interaction out of the people who are already there. And that every year that gets to be fewer and fewer people. And what all of us need to do, we all need to do this because my work touches sports and it definitely does them. It touches Broadway, it touches the arts, it touches all these sectors. Is you need to be growing the people you're talking to because there's natural attrition. You want there to be natural attrition because you don't want to keep serving the same people over and over again because that's likely a sign that your organization's stagnant. But you need to broaden your reach, right? And that's why the earlier thing where I was talking about the long and short of it is so very important, because if you don't do some kind of long-term brand building, it'll be impossible to touch new audiences. Highlight what you offer. Highlight the ways that you can move people, right? Because, how you can add value. Because, I know from the work I've done over the years, people are going to see arts for many different reasons, right? Sometimes it's like tradition. Sometimes it's a family, right? Sometimes it's a form of nostalgia. There are business reasons, right? People take people to entertain clients. It could be part of the arts curriculum and education. There's any number of reasons. And so you need to understand that, because you can highlight those through your brand building, and you can grow the potential audience that you can reach. Unfortunately, though, in too many cases, people would go, let's say for easy math, because who wants to do math? You have an audience of 100,000 people, right? And then if you're losing, and we'll say this is year 0, and then you have 5% every year, so you lose 5,000 people that first year, right? So then if you lose another 5%, you've lost 4,700 or so. So now you're almost not just over 90,000. So you've lost almost 10% of your audience in 2 years. So without focusing on those people who aren't your customers today, in a couple of years, you're going to face what like the orchestras and some of these arts organizations are dealing now, where they've lost 25 to 30% of their audience. And so you have to replenish it. And you do that by focusing on people, not just by hoping they'll show up. You have to be proactive, right? Which again, research, talking to people, understanding what they value, focus on brand building and making those emotional connections, so that like you can begin to capture people and drive people into your organizations. It's because it's always got to be a long-term project.
100%. Come on, man. Number 5, discounts are for dummies.
Oh, discounts are for dummies is, God, so glad I came up with that saying about almost 10 years ago now, because it has taken me to every continent except for Antarctica. It has been, the original article has been translated into 7 or 8 languages now. I've lost track of Mandarin, English, Spanish, German, Russian, all kinds of Portuguese. I lost track. It's amazing. And all I did was, when I said discounts are for dummies, it was a direct relationship to work I did as a young professional in nightclubs. And what I found was in the mid-90s, when I was opening discos, the real discos around the country, one time one of the managers of the club was like, "We need to raise our check average by 25 cents per person." So it's like, people would $13, $13.25. And what we did was, I came up with this question, and it said, "What gin would you prefer?" Right? And so everybody, I found, had a preference for the kind of gin they wanted to drink. Nobody saw themselves as a gin drinker, right? Which now you're going on, Dave, what does this have to do with discounts for dummies? I'm going to get there. So what you find is that people are telling themselves a story, right? And that story is like going, well, I'm a young professional. I'm maybe going to meet somebody I can go on a date with. I'm going to have some fun with my friends. Like, I'm going to celebrate this promotion. It's perception. So when you go back to the discounts are for dummies, because it does the exact opposite. It tears all that away. It says, I'm a commodity. I don't believe in the value I'm offering you. It steals your profit, right? My professor, one of my marketing professors, a guy called Mark Ritson, who taught at the London School of Economics, MIT, Melbourne School of Business, he taught me that for every 1% you discount, you can lose up to 40% of your profit. That's 1%. You lose 40% of your profit. Now, that's an extreme example, and I use it because it tells a story. What I've seen over the course of my career, and it's been backed up by research at Harvard Business School, is that for every 1% you discount, you do lose 10 to 11%, which is the inverse of similar research that shows for every 1% you can raise your price, you gain 10 or 11% in profitability. So discounts are for dummies because it creates a lot of these negative impacts for you. So you lose brand equity, you undermine your brand associations, you steal profitability. The challenge for everybody is And this happens in the arts and in sports and anything with a ticket all the time. It's like set these prices up here with no relation to the value that people perceived or anything that people might think. And then we discount or we try to paper the house, right? Because it's going to work. But no, it doesn't, right? And the danger really becomes, just like we were talking about earlier, is like the first time you press that discount button, it works okay, right? You get a little bit of bounce. But then you have to keep doing it because you've taught your audience a lesson, which is like there'll always be a better deal. So you can't discount because discounts are for dummies.
So what advice would you give an arts organization who it just went out and said all tickets are $11?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And they got this 2,400 or 4,300 tickets sold in that announcement. Fantastic. What are they going to see 6 months, a year from now?
I guess I would really need more information on it. Like, so why are they selling me tickets at $11, right? Is 4,300 seats, is that good or bad for them, right? Like, what were they hoping to achieve by this promotion? Because...
Well, I think the thought is if we can get them in the door once, they'll come back. So
okay. So that's okay. This is great. I won't name names here, but anybody who's listening to this that's in sports tickets will know exactly who I'm talking about, because there are some morons that are out there. Like, that's their sales pitch. Their entire pitch is that we are going to get people in the door and then we're going to raise prices afterwards, because they're going to decide that this is such an amazing experience that I'm going to be able to raise the price no matter what. People will just come back. And it is stupid because it's wrong, right? It's just simply wrong. It may work the next time. And if it does, it will be the first time that I've seen it in the many, many years I've been doing it. What you can do is, it is always much, much, much more difficult to raise a price than it is to lower a price. It is also incumbent that you don't discount the thing. If you need to reset a price because you overshot your price, then you just reset the price. So let's give you an example, and I'll get back to the reason this doesn't work in a second. So let's say you do some research. You say $25 seems like a reasonable price for these tickets. And then you go and you say, well, $25 is maybe a little off. You really probably should be about at 20. Don't do the 25% discount or 20% discount or whatever it would be. 20%, which would be get you back to that. Just reset the damn price to $20. And there's a couple reasons why, right? It allows you, it shows that you did a process, right? The process is good internally, right? It allows you the opportunity to communicate the price, and it allows you to go back into the market, and talk to your customers and highlight all those positive things again. You can say, you can even make the reset price a strong part of this thing, whole new block of seats for $20, right? You can fluff it up all over, or you say 20% off and it just goes, whoa, they must not be selling very many tickets. The thing must not be very good. So anyway, back to why this $11 ticket is at $4,300. We're going to get you in the door and it's not going to work. It doesn't work. It's because, number one, you've set a false impression of what the value of your product is. That's the big thing, right? You've taught people that, well, this is a great experience, but it's at $10. Well, then all of a sudden, when they're making a decision the next time and the real price is $20, then they're going, well, I don't know if it's worth $20. And it could just be, if it charged you $20 at the start, it could be worth the $20. But now their frame of reference is wrong. And controlling that frame of reference is the real key to setting the right price. So the way I try to teach people is through the 3 P's of pricing, which is, what's the process you're following? And the tool I tell people to use, there's all kinds of things like conjoint studies and really fancy ways of doing it. There's it's called the Van Westendorp pricing model. It's 4 questions. You can do it. I would just say use more data rather than less, right? As opposed to when we're doing research where you can extrapolate things pretty quickly. You can plot it out. It'll give you a big hole in the middle. You can kind of get an idea where your pricing should be. But you want to have a process in place. You don't want to just pull it out of thin air, which is where most people come up. Or they go, oh, it takes us this much to put on the show, right? And these many things are going on, but called the cost of goods and services, which is another bad way to kind of fix your price because nobody cares. right? Nobody cares about how much it costs to put on the show. They just care about how much they value it. So you want to have a process, and the process should help you understand what people value and what they would think the value of that is in a monetary form. Then you have the price yourself, right? Most people apologize about their price. They kind of like meekly step in the thing. It's like, oh, this ticket's going to be $100. I'm so sorry. No, go loud and proud, please. And then you have the promotion part, right? Because most of the people, again, because that goes along with that meekness of like being afraid that they have to charge $100 for something. They don't want to promote it, right? But let's think about it. I did some research. It was a movie, right? You go to the movies now, like you and your husband, you and your wife, your partner go to the movies, and it might cost you $60 or $70 to go to a movie, right? Because by the time you get a popcorn and a large soda, you pay for some parking, you get your ticket at like an IMAX, you're like $50 a person. You might not even enjoy that much, so like, don't be afraid, but the movies never apologize for how much they're charging you. So why should an arts organization? Don't do it. Embrace it and run with it, so that promote it. So have a process. Don't be afraid of the price, set the right, I won't say this one here, but I have a workshop that I would do from time to time. It's called Set the Right Effing Price. But is set the right price and then promote it. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it.
Love it. That's great. So
that was a long one. That's in my wheelhouse. The thing is my wheelhouse.
No, I'm glad I brought it up because I see that happen so often. And I have organizations ask or say to me, we can't figure out how to get audiences to come. Mm-hmm. So we adjust our price. We've done buy one, get one, all seats $10.
Price is a terrible way of driving demand.
Yeah.
Because if people don't want it, it doesn't matter if it's free.
Correct. Or if you want it bad enough, you're going to fly to Vienna and see Taylor Swift because I couldn't get a ticket in the U.S. So let's just make a summer trip out of it.
Yes.
And price isn't an issue, right?
Right.
So I agree. We've got to get over this whole pricing structure.
Talked about me going to flying to London to go see Pearl Jam. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter. I'll go.
Right. Right.
The price is not an object at that.
Because primarily, the experience you're going to get. That's why I think we need to focus more on what experience your audience is going to have rather than focusing on the ticket price and just saying, come out and see so-and-so this weekend. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Right. Yeah, we can go down this for a long time.
Oh, but let's go on. This is a whole days worth of conversation. Yes,
absolutely.
Because everything is in there.
Completely. Number 4, product launches can make or break you.
Yeah, product launches are a real. They are a real opportunity for people. And what I have discovered is that a lot of people never even consider it. And I think in the class, somebody asked me why this happens. And I would tell you, I don't know. I think people just kind of neglect the product. I am on the board of my son's soccer club in DC. And that's because this is the most recent example because we just got the numbers back from what we did. And this is September right now. So May into June. And so I taught them the way I teach people to do product launches, which is think about it like your Barbie and you're taking Barbie to the world, but just you got 30, 60, 90 days, whatever time frame you have. And at the end of this, I'm going to launch it, right? So maybe there's a huge show coming to town and you want to go into the market with it. Maybe it's your subscriptions for the season. You don't just drop them out like Major League Baseball does with their schedule just on some random Tuesday in August. And then there's no tickets around. And then tickets go on sale not around Christmas, but somewhere in the middle of the winter when people aren't paying attention. No, you have a concerted effort. You build it. Boom, boom, boom. You say, let's fix 30 days. You map out your calendar for 30 days. What am I going to do today that's going to tease, build demand, build anticipation, build excitement for what's going on sale? And you do it just like a blockbuster movie.
But this goes back to your marketing gets put to the side, right? Because this is all the whole marketing thing. And so if you don't value marketing and what that means, then there you get into the product launch is just not even
Yeah,
You
people don't even think about it, and that
Right.
was really the point I made to the class was people just don't think about it. They don't think that it applies to whatever product. They think, oh, it must just be for a movie. But I was like, no, it works for everybody. So back to the example of my son's soccer club, right? We have been trying to reach more kids in the district because we serve kids, and I want to say I may have the numbers incorrect, but the percentage is going to be right. Last year, I think we served about 7,000 kids, 7,200 kids in the District of Columbia. So District of Columbia, about just under 700,000 family or people. So that's not a small percentage of the thing. A lot of old people. DC, a very old city. So not like, I mean, there's not huge kids population. And so this year, for the year ending, we had hit almost 10,500. So we had grown about 30%. And that was on top of the almost 30% we had grown the year before. So all we had changed was the way that we launched our programs and our, and for lack of a better term, products, right? So each of the camps, when the kids are off from school, they would have a product launch and we would tease them for 30 years, 45 days before they go on sale. Like, mark your calendar now, the kids are off on these days, and the club's going to have this program going on at Jelliff, right? Which is our main place. Tryouts are coming, right? Rec soccer's coming, all these things. 25 to 30% on every program.
Where are you doing this marketing? Where are you doing all of that communication?
Oh, many numbers of places, which is an important formula for arts people. I'm going to teach you, this is like getting like a full class. Don't even have to pay for the
I
MBA.
know.
This is great. So A plus B is greater than 2A or 2B. Let me see if I can do this again. A plus B is greater than 2A or 2B. And I'm going to hold it up in case you clip them for social media. So can you read that right there?
Yes.
My handwriting's awful.
Yeah.
So what that means is that combining methods is greater than doubling down on any one. So in our case, right, so using the club, we would do message boards for parents, right? So like virtual message boards. We would get flyers and announcements into the schools. We would use social media that's targeted the parents and in some cases the kids, depending on what the things were. We would use word of mouth through our kids. We'd incentivize them. Like, so friends came and signed up for something. Hey, look, we would reward you in some way. So we would use many, many different methods, right? And, again, it's use soccer. So, you don't have the same level. Partners in the in the community, right? We would combine methods. And so what we did was we just wanted to make sure that we had a robust promotion schedule that reflected the value of what, we were offering people. And we didn't just use one thing and say, okay, well, that's it. We've done our marketing. We combined methods. And that's important because the more you combine methods, the more impactful they become for both your sales activation and your brand building. So you don't want to, and this is again for arts people, at least when I'm talking to them, a lot of times they have their, their posters that they hang in like a few places around town. They probably bought a half page, quarter page, or full page in the local newspaper if they still have one. They may do a couple of ads on the radio, and there might be a little social media. But again, there's no concerted coordination with them. So for a launch, you want to understand that if you combine tools, it's more powerful, and that everything should build, right? And it should be a mix of things. It could be a social media thing one day. It could be your executive director, on the local TV the next day. And then it could be followed up with an email blast that highlights these other things. They all should just kind of fit together and build off of each other.
Why, Dave, number 3, your value proposition can make you look like a genius.
Yes. Okay. This is now this one's going to be tricky for people in the arts, but it shouldn't be, because we all, in a way, have unique value that we bring. And a good example of thinking this is a lot of times when we're faced with products, right? Like we're going to go buy something, especially, I think, I'll use a professional example. A lot of times solutions we need for maybe this webcast, the podcast that we're doing, these webcast recorder things, they're all basically like me too. Oh, I can record you and like have 2 or 3 people on here. Me too, right? So there's no differentiation. And your value proposition really should be about your unique value. So it can make you look really great because it allows you to highlight what you do well. The example I was going to use directly for the arts is in the arts, I started out with the Seattle Theater Group, so the STG. So with Paramount, the Moore at the time. And so our big competitor as far as that was the Fifth Avenue Theater. But they're 2 entirely different organizations with 2 entirely different missions, 2 entirely different locations. Even though they're both downtown Seattle, the thing is like you were going to them for different things, right? Like the Fifth Avenue at the time I was there would get a number of big productions. It was a little bit more, it felt like, it was kind of like where you're trying them out, or like they would like just be like sit down tentpoles. Whereas the Paramount was like a lot of tours that would come in for a week or 2. A lot of more contemporary art would come through at the same time. The building had been modernized and it was different. Same sort of thing, maybe even the same audiences in a lot of cases, but different position, right? Like you knew you were going to get like a little bit, either you're going to get the biggest stars or you're going to get something that was a little bit like new and trendy. And then maybe the Fifth Avenue might have been a little more traditional. You have to sell those differently. And
Right.
It's not a bad thing. It just means that you need to do that, right? Don't be afraid of it. Make your value proposition part of what makes you great. And that's all that means. Because too many people default to this is what everybody else is doing. And this is really common in the arts, especially when you look at Broadway, because I know a lot of times people look to what Broadway's doing. And I'm going to tell you, despite the amount of money that Broadway brings in, the advertising in most cases is god awful because everybody puts up the pull quote from a review from the New York Times or the New York Post from some reviewer that nobody from Iowa or Ohio or Indiana has ever heard of nor ever cares about. And that's like 90% of their marketing is like some pull quote. And it could be like out of some review that savaged the performance. It's okay. It looks great. So you got to be different. You have to be you. That's the big thing about marketing is it should be uniquely you.
Correct. I wrote down embrace your uniqueness and exploit it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Number 2, we're coming down to the wire. You will have to fight for your brand at every turn.
Yes. So earlier we talked about how little investment goes into brands. And we talked about, I showed you that really award-winning picture I drew of the long and short.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just send what is the art reward, like a Nobel Prize in art or whatever, send it to my my door, stick it right outside the office here. Most of the time though, the brand is not invested in. And it hurts people because the thing is like you want to build anticipation. You want to build a connection with your audience and your community. You want to tell a story. Right? And you do that with your brand because it's not a hit or miss thing. It's something that builds over time, right? There is a compound interest that goes into brand building. And so over time, if you continue to make those small investments over and over and over again, your brand becomes very powerful. And what that does though, is investing in your brand after, I'll go back to the long and short of it, which we talked about earlier. Which is like if you need to invest in both long and short, branding and sales activation. When you remove the brand building, it's just sales activation on its own. That initial sugar rush that you get, that sugar high of like improved performance, lasts for about 12 to 18 months. After about 12 to 18 months, though, you see it falls off a cliff, right? And it's very drastic, the changes. The reason that the brand is powerful because if you look at the same thing, and you map them out over, I forget what kind of chart, just lines on a chart. You would see that over 3-year period, that if you invest in both, your sales is going to far exceed what it would from just doing the brand activation. So if you don't, you'll see a cliff, but if you do, you'll see that your sales have increased after 18 months. It takes about 18 months for things to kick in. You're always fighting for it, though, is because it's tough to measure the return on investment of it. And what brand building often requires in the start is a leap of faith. And again, this goes back to why is marketing getting pushed in the corner? Because most of the people who are doing the marketing role have been beaten down, or they don't have the training, or unfortunately, everybody thinks they can do the job of marketing, right? Because I'm sure Angela definitely can speak to this. I'm sure you can. And if you can't, I'll speak to it for you. It's fine. You sat in these board meetings or with executives, and they'll go, well, I can tell you what marketing is. I know people tell me I'm a great marketer, or they do all these things. And I'm like going, my God, I know that this is going to be bad because most of the time it means they're going to pull something out of thin air that they think is like, has come down from the hand of God. And it's usually going to be based on just their gut instinct. But most of the brand doesn't get invested in because people haven't been trained. The information is bad. People have the wrong perception of what the brand is. And if you don't invest in the brand, you're going to have to fight for it. You're going to see things fall and trail and die out. And there's no amount of sales promotion that's going to recover this. So every dollar you can get that you can invest in your brand is going to pay off. And it might take, 12 to 18 months before you start to see it pay off, but it will. And it will. And the thing about it is it has a compound interest that builds over and over and over again. And it allows you to be more successful over time. But in the short term, you can't show the ROI of it. So you have to keep fighting for it because you only know how much it cost you by its absence. I don't know if I explained that as well as I usually do.
Yes. No, I get it. And you're right. I agree. How's
Especially
that?
The part about people telling you, I know marketing. People tell me I'm a great marketer because that happens about at least once a month, even now.
So number one, we're down to number one. I love this. Nobody cares.
Yes, absolutely. So this is like I told the students in Tom's class that I was going to build it in a story so that it would make sense at the end. And so the truth about marketing is nobody cares, right? I think we alluded to this earlier. So the biggest struggle people are fighting is that nobody's paying you any attention. Everybody's overwhelmed. I don't know if this number is accurate, but it seems directionally correct, so we can go with it. And it changes every couple of years. So again, that's why I don't know if it's accurate. But, people are hit with 5,000 different demands for their attention every day. And again, I don't know how that number is accurate or whatever, but it seems right? Like we got pings and dings and like alerts and, doorbells and texts and everything coming in from all over the place. And what that really means for people in the arts or people that just in marketing in general is that you have to realize that like you're interrupting people, even if they love you, right? You're still an interruption. And so nobody really cares. You care, right? I care. You care because you're in the business. It's your livelihood. So you have an outsized belief in the importance of what you're doing. Most people, though, it's this really little small thing, right? Nobody cares. And so every action you take should be from the standpoint of like, how am I going to interrupt somebody and get their attention and get them to take an action? That's going to help move me down the road of either I want people to have a more fond impression of me. I want people to share the experience they had at my wonderful show. I want people to buy tickets. I want them to come to a certain event. I want them to, whatever it is I want them to do. My first thing is I have to get them to pay attention to me. So how am I going to be able to cut through all the clutter of all the dings and pings and alerts and messages in at least 6 or 7 different inboxes this week? So if your starting point is like nobody cares, then it's going to make you change the way you approach the job. And I know that if we get any kind of like pushback, it's going to be this because people are going to be like, you just don't understand how important the arts are. And I'm not telling you that they're not. I'm telling you that like that is your point of view. You have to take the point of view from the other side. Like the person I'm trying to reach, what do they care about? What do they think about? What is important to them? Because I can guarantee them giving me their money is not at the top of their list when they get up in the morning.
Exactly. I always say approach it from a why should they care?
Yeah.
Why should this matter? And then it goes back to my Renaissance of relevance. We're on a Renaissance of relevance, Dave, and we're going to get people to care and recognize, as I told you before, we're going to recognize the ROA, return on art.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
You have to teach people to do this. It's like the point about being relevant is you have to recognize that I'm irrelevant right now, right? And people don't understand the importance and the return on the arts because they don't know what it is now, right? Those are foundationally in the idea that nobody's paying you any attention. And again, I know this because I get these emails all the time. So Angela's email inbox will now get inundated with some of the stuff I do. It's not that I don't care. It's that I do care. And I'm trying to teach you how to make it so other people do, because that is like the faulty foundation of so much arts marketing is that, well, people should know better and people should I can't believe people don't want to see this, or I can't believe that people won't pay attention to this, or I can't believe. No, the foundation is that people aren't. And it's not because they don't care. It's because they're overwhelmed. There's so many demands, so many things going on, so many potential ways to spend their money, to spend their attention and their time, so many different ways for them to achieve a similar goal. You have to understand what it is people value and want so you can give it to them. Not so that they can discover, there certainly are people who are on this journey of art, right? To discover all the different things. Let's assume that's not the person I'm trying to sell to today. And let's assume that what they really are looking for is a nice thing to take their partner to, right? They want to do something nice with their partner that's not a movie or not a sports ball or, any of those things. Let's start there and let's figure out how to get those people in there. Let's figure out how we can create something for a diverse audience, because maybe that's a big thing that our organization wants to achieve, and we're not going to do it by having the same set of programs. Let's just figure out or I guess a better example here is why aren't more, Spanish people or Black people or Indian people coming to my theater? It's just all old white people. This is when I went to Australia. That was the thing, older and whiter. Ask your question, why aren't people doing that? And understand that maybe your organization has become irrelevant because you have been focusing on those. You haven't been focusing on those non-customers. You've only been focusing on the customers. And that each year that gets a little bit smaller. Maybe you haven't been doing research, right, with these audiences that you haven't been reaching to understand what do they want, need, and value. What are they willing to pay for? Because if they're not willing to pay for it, then maybe that's another challenge you're dealing with. But you got to start with the point of, I'm not getting through because people either don't know or don't care. And how can I change that? Because I need them to pay attention to me. So nobody cares, which it really captures everything and drives you back out into.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, we are coming to the time where I like to ask my guests 2 common questions.
Sure.
One is, how do you define the arts?
Okay. All right. Oh, so you're going to ask. You're going to ask about. You can't take me anywhere. All right. How do I?
That was you were correct. I set that up poorly.
That's okay. That is totally fine.
Let's start over. I'm going to start over.
I got it. What do I do? No, I don't want you to have to edit me.
So Dave, how do you define the art?
Geez, I think art can be almost anything. And I look at art almost as it's like a teaching tool. And I think it's, the arts is just a way, people to learn lessons, to become more present in the world, to, experience people and cultures and ideas that, they may not have, gained access to otherwise. um, to me, art's like a teaching tool, and it's a little magical because when you're around like a great piece of art, it doesn't have to even be like we spent all our time today talking about performing arts, but it could be even like painting, because a painting is a conversation really between you and the past. It's a little bit, it's education and it's magic. And it's a way to like talk across generations, and it's, to me, it's like, it's just, I guess I don't usually get jammed up on this stuff, but it's, to me, it's like this really amazing thing that I've had this wonderful opportunity to experience all these like great art in all these great places all over the world. And so when I say it's a teaching tool and it's a little magical and it's a conversation across civilizations, I mean it because I grew up in northern Georgia as the first kid that went to college, and the first person in my family to always have indoor plumbing. And so the idea that like I would see that like art has always been like this thing to me where it allows me to experience things that I would have not necessarily as a kid had any idea that I would have been able to experience. So the fact that I can see these things and touch these things, experience these things, and have this communication across all these like different cultures and people and things. To me, art is magic because it's like there's no real proven path that people have for creativity. There's no reason, it's just magical. It touches us, and it does so much for us. So I think I don't know if I get a good answer, but that's the best I got, I think.
Well, I think that's better than the best because it clearly evoked, memories of past. And I think that was beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, what color do you love the most and why?
Oh, blue. Definitely blue. I know this because my car is blue, my house is blue, my jacket I have on right now is blue. But if you ask me why I like blue, I have no clue. I think it's just like blue is like both strong and comforting at the same time. And then it's like also like depending on what kind of blue it is, it can convey so much. It's like, there's like light and lively blues, and those are going to be more like the aquas and teals that still are kind of bluish, but not necessarily. And then like my jacket here is a deep navy blue and it's strong, right? Strong and stable. So I think like blue, it has to be because of like it conveys so much. It has such deep meaning, which unlike me, is like just surface level. Some blue.
That's fantastic. And I think you proved the contrary on that surface level comment, Dave. Hey, so thank you for joining. Where can people find you if they're interested?
You can find me a couple places. There's the Business of Fun podcast, which I was lucky enough to have you on, which is great. It is the #1 podcast in the world for people who market and sell live entertainment. So if you listen to this one, you'll probably find something interesting there. I've had like really great conversations. It's been going on for like 5 years. You can find me on my website. It's davewakeman.com. That's Dave, which is easy enough. Wakeman, Wakeman. You can also get you can get newsletters there. There's a newsletter sign up, but probably the most relevant for your audience is the Talking Tickets newsletter, which is at talkingtickets.substack.com. And that's just where I kind of put together all my ideas about strategy and marketing to the live event industry.
Perfect. Thank you again. We'll also have all of this information in the show notes for anybody. But Dave, I really appreciate your time, and I hope to have you back again sometime soon.
Hopefully your inbox will like withstand the onslaught of all these Pandora's boxes, I hope.
I love it.
But
yes.
Good luck with your podcast. I wish you nothing but the best of luck with it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.